And then you also have just the ethical questions. Do you not apply? If you think if you think this service or this application is so beneficial to children, then how can you not provide this service to the child? Because the ideal scientific research model would be your sort of blind randomized study,
Right.
where you have a control group that doesn't receive the intervention, and then you have a group that does receive the intervention. So how can you deny that intervention to kids who are struggling? So that's why, especially in education, creating the scientific research model is very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. So what are the key elements of the funding system that we tried to create? We thought it was critical that we define what a 21st century education looks like. And this goes back to Justice Resnick's decision, that last point of defining what an adequate education is. Then once you've identified what a 21st century education looks like, you determine what the costs are by looking at the actual cost data. That's the one thing. In the state of Ohio, we have a wealth of cost data for our school districts. It's called the CUP report. And it's been developed and assembled for the last probably 10, 15 years now. Then you have to determine what is going to be the local and state responsibility for meeting that cost. Why is that important? Because, I say this all the time, I think there's only one state in the country that has a state responsible for everything. That's Hawaii. And they have one educational district, which is the state district for the entire state of Hawaii. Every other state has some type of shared, I don't want to call it responsibility because Bill Phillips gets very upset when I say shared responsibility, but there's this shared acknowledgement that the locals will have a certain, will have certain dollars from local community applied to the education, and then there will be state dollars. And we think what the Supreme Court was saying is that that's okay. You can have that shared type of system, but what they said was that the majority of that responsibility should not be on the local side. The state should have the vast majority of the responsibility.
The state will tell us what to do, and you locals have to fund it.
Yeah, in essence. That's in essence what the
That's
court
the essence
found.
of what Ohio has been.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Distributing resources to meet unique student needs we thought was really critical, because not every student in the state is the same. And as diverse a state as we have in Ohio, that's especially true. And this again goes back to the John Dewey quote. And then address disparities created by different property valuations in the state, which again goes back to the over-reliance on the property taxes. So why use the evidence-based model? And I've already talked about those. I'm not going to go into great. So when you look at the evidence-based model, these different components that I have listed here, and also that's on this sheet, are the different elements that we thought would create a 21st century education in the state of Ohio within the evidence-based model structure and framework. Some of those things are educational challenge factor, which is an index that we created to recognize the economic disadvantaged kids that are in districts that have high concentrations of economically disadvantaged kids. They need a little bit more additional resources to educate those kids because of the challenges that they bring to the classroom on a daily basis. All-day kindergarten, we felt, was critical to a 21st century education. And again, this is not our feeling. This is based on what research is telling us, and also based on the outreach that we did in 2008, because some of these things were also identified in those community forums by people like yourselves and community people who say, yeah, we think all-day kindergarten is something that the state should be investing in as a whole.